Hello and welcome to another We Are Developers Live. I always get freaked out by the end of that music because in the middle of a MERP, it actually starts to bing and I'm like, what's happening? Is the stream broken or what's going on? Anyways, I'm Chris from We Are Developers. I'm here with...
I'm Dan, and I'm here also from WeAreDevelopers. I love the t-shirt, Chris. I've got to start off with that. I think that's the thing we don't mention enough on this show. You're a little Easter egg t-shirt. So yeah, tell your dog I said hi. If I had one, I would. But yeah, I love that.
That's from the We Rate Dogs Twitter account or Facebook account, and basically when you order that there, that all the money goes to charity, and then they show you which dog shelter got it and what they did with it. So it's a beautiful thing. I also got the sticker on my laptop, which is a great thing. They sadly enough don't have anything in Europe, so basically it cost me like 13 euros just to get the stuff sent because of income tax coming in, tariffs and stuff. So I'm actually tempted to ask them if I should print for them in Europe so people can order more, but we'll see. What else has been on your mind, on top of your mind this week? Bear in mind that this is going out on YouTube and we cannot say some things, but like what was...
Well, I mean, that would be one thing. Yeah, I'm staying away from those topics, actually. I think there's been enough going on in the world of tech for us to... I know we've got some of them kind of coming up. I think one that we would be remiss without mentioning, and I'll leave it till later, would be vibe coding. I think that's just something you cannot escape this week. So that's probably been the thing that's every morning I'm logging into various social media and seeing people talking about it. And so I'm sure that's going to come up in the show today.
It's great when you got these new topics coming up, these new terms, and every time there's something new. And I mean, there's again a new agent now from China, like AI agent that's basically promising everything again. So you could waste a lot of time just chasing those things. But I think it's good to do some focusing, to do some filtering, and this is what this show is about as well. Again, we have a guest today, and this guest didn't travel far to get here because he's also in Berlin. So Zaid Zaim is our guest today. You've been a few times at WeAreDevelopers. You've been we've been crossing paths, but why don't you introduce yourself and what do you do?
Hi, Chris. Hi, Danny. Hi, WeAreDevelopers community. I'm glad to be here. So I'm Zaid. I am from Berlin. I am a Microsoft MVP for mixed reality and M365. So I do all around immersive technologies, cool demos, and so on. And now I started getting also on the AI track as well. So building like demos and use cases intersecting between immersive technologies and AI. And I lead the Global AI Berlin chapter of Global AI Community.
Okay, what's that community?
So Global AI Community is a worldwide network that brings people together around the world to meet, connect, network, and learn and grow and upskill in AI. We have around 87,000 plus members globally. And yeah, like we introduced last year in May at Microsoft Build the chapters opportunity. So if you are, let's say, in Paris or in Dubai, you can kick off your own chapter and then build your own Global AI chapter community. So following, the Global AI community goals and basically contributing to a global community and at the same time building your own local community, fostering it, and
it's a very interesting time right now with like the OpenAI and Microsoft kind of like parting ways or finding different ways to do things. So it's been interesting to see when when Copilot out of a sudden offered all the models. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I loved it because I like choice, but it felt like okay, well, where's the OpenAI partnership there? But now OpenAI announced that they actually bought another company or invested in another company that does their cloud networking for them. I wonder who that is, because in essence, nobody has the hardware except for the big players, right? It feels interesting to see that disconnect to a degree after there was disconnect. And I don't know about every time you get a news item with Sam Altman in it, it always fascinates me that it looks miserable. Is it just him, or do they pick the pictures that make him look like he's pondering something horrible?
That's interesting. I didn't came across that one.
It's always a concerned look, isn't it? It's like a really good example of, the way that every single time, there's one of these articles, it's always somebody going like this. And it's like DeepSeek have released a new AI model, so then it'll show Sam Altman like this, or it'll, it's always like everyone's stressed about the competition. I guess is kind of what they're going for. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's not like YouTube thumbnails, where everybody's just overly excited about everything and things are just like, oh God, it works. That's the sad thing. It really works.
It does.
It's really
Is
bizarre.
it a human thing though? Maybe it's that. It's just having a human. It's like that thing of. I once saw a researcher do a session about the internet, and they said the only thing that everybody will respond to and kind of like and engage with is a baby or a dog, and so having a face on there, I guess, makes it more engaging. I don't know.
Wasn't that also some research into Tinder and into like OkCupid and stuff? Like if you go on dating sites, you should always have like a dog or a baby with you, and that would make it more interesting.
I did. I had a cat and it worked. So
fair enough. I just showed a picture of a glass of wine and some chocolate instead of me, so that worked. But no, I never been on that one, actually, weirdly enough. Although OkCupid I thought was a cool idea. It was like having a dating site that was surveys, so it asked you about your interests and stuff. And then you found the person according to your interests rather than according to a picture that might, by today's standards, will be AI generated anyway. So, I mean, that's the thing. I never understood the filter thing. Like you just basically filter yourself to death and then you want to meet in person. That's just like setting yourself up for failure, isn't it?
I mean, Zaid, you can tell us about that, right? In terms of if it's, like when we see these filters like Snapchat and Instagram and things like this, was it? And I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm always interested in, did those filters come around because people were making the technology for those filters? Or was it that it was like a wider technology that was meant for like augmented reality and something else? And then people went, we could also just use it for filters. Where does it come from?
Totally. Like one of my very recent interaction with let's say filters and Snapchat was that they released back in November their spectacles glasses, and they are like really living the momentum to bring augmented reality through their new glasses. So like the glass is like more or less very similar to my own glasses. You put it on, and then you can start projecting all of these filters you used to, let's say, have on your phone in Snapchat, but like you can have them in sort of a Pokemon playing around in front of your space, and you can like start directly like multiplayer game with your friend or peer who also have a glass. It was a very nice experience. It reminds me a lot in the early days with what Microsoft used to do with HoloLens too.
So you don't need to escape the filter bubble anymore. You see it in real life if you have these glasses on as well.
Exactly.
You can put like octopuses on people's heads, like the brain leech from Futurama, and like, so that's gonna be really cool.
Yeah. And I was also very like I'm a big fan of all things around smart glasses. Although I still don't have one, so I am very much interested like in the Meta Ray-Ban glass. So like I don't know like in how impactful it is to have like an AI in your glasses at the same time, but you see like Meta is working toward making these glasses, let's say, more legit for a smart approach, and we see their work in augmented reality around this Orion glass that is enabling going to enable augmented reality glasses. So we saw the announcement of that, for example, at the Meta Connect last year, and let's see where we go with that. Personally, I also experiment a lot with let's say with the Meta Quest 3, and it has also these pass-through capabilities where you see also the environment, and I try, let's say, to simulate how would really mixed reality experiences and augmented reality experiences would go in the future toward these more handy glasses in the future.
I think that one of the problems with that whole thing is that the cost factor and the abandonment factor as well. Like, I mean, you got like the HoloLens 1, HoloLens 2, and they were like $2,000, $3,000 things. And then like half a year later, you don't get any software updates any longer. or like the Snapchat glasses that completely went away. Ray-Ban apparently was very happy with the partnership because they sold more Ray-Bans than ever before, even more than in the 60s, like when they came out to basically do that. I met one person with one in the party, and it has a little red light when it does recording, which is, I think, a good thing in privacy aspect. But it feels like there is a lot of investment in this space that you need to do upfront before you can develop. Because the emulators, to me, never ever gave you a full experience, or like had not the latency of the real device, so you got this yourself while developing. You got a wrong impression, right? All right, let's go through some of the links that we have. But first of all, I just got reminded about one trick that I keep showing people, and it blows them away because they keep forgetting it. Zaid earlier had like an MVP in curly braces after his name as well, and then we told him it's like an overload of 2 MVPs. But where that actually is really interesting is with console log. Like if you have a y equals 3 here, for example, most people will do a console log y somewhere in their code, right? And that would give you the 3 there. But if you have actually something that is not as obvious as that, the really clever thing to do is put the curly braces around that y, because then it actually, when you do that, it will say y is 3. So basically, every time you do that in your log with all the other messages, you will know where that came from. So that's a really simple trick to have the name of the variable and the content of the variable, or the value of the variable, at the same time in console log. A very simple way to save yourself a lot of like, okay, there's a 5 logged in my log, but what does it mean, kind of thing.
Interesting. Nice. And by the way, like on the note of MVP, we are looking for Microsoft MVPs. So someone interested, applications are open.
Nice.
Okay. MVP applications are open. It's becoming harder. I mean, I remember when I was at Microsoft, year after year, we made like, it was not giving out MVP titles like candy any longer. It actually was, you had to show something, and you had to show continuous commitment to it. But it's a good thing. It's a good program. And a lot of other programs have gone away as well. I'm very happy that Microsoft's investing in that one as well. And talk about Microsoft investing, this one broke yesterday. That basically they're working on shifting TypeScript to Go. And Anders did this video here that explains it. And also on Friday, there's going to be a live thing with him on the internets where he's going to talk about in detail about this. Now, the interesting bit about it is that that TypeScript, I loved it because it was so meta. It wasn't by meta, but it was meta. It was basically written in itself. It was JavaScript with types on top, but it was JavaScript at the core. And Anders explains that as well to a degree, and that's the problem of it, because as TypeScript is used on a server-side language for like memory-intensive environments and these kind of things, JavaScript is not the right language for it because it's too flexible. JavaScript, anything could be anything. So you basically, the memory consumption is much higher than in a language where you have to define what something is. And it's optimized for browser and interaction with users in the UI. So there's expandos, there's attributes, there's all kind of stuff that actually it deals with. So now they've rewritten not all of it yet in Go, which means, and he shows in the video as well, that like what was a minute of building Visual Studio Code is now like 20 seconds of Visual Studio Code. So it's about a 10 to 15 times speed improvement. The worrying thing about that is, to me now, that Node is supporting TypeScript natively. Will that still be the case? Because Node is not in Go, right?
I'm not sure on that. I mean, Zaid, before you jump in on that, I mean, was it only me that saw when it said 10x times? I actually thought that was sort of just a turn of phrase, you know, because you see that 10x so much now, like 10x developer. And so when you said just then, you know, this is actually a 10-fold increase, it's like, oh, right, okay, now I'm convinced. Because at first I thought it was just marketing, like, look, we've made some improvements that only performance people will notice or kind of, you know, actually kind of feel the benefit of. So that sounds great, but yeah, I don't know about the Node side of things. I'm not sure.
It kind of feels as well like TypeScript was meant to be easy for JavaScript developers to go to the next level and add types and add more structure to their code. But it kind of lost it really quickly because that build step in between was actually, people like me who like JavaScript in the browser, I never felt that was something I wanted to do. Now Node made it supported, so that's not the issue anymore. You don't need to go through a build script any longer. But it's going to be interesting what that means. And it's going to be interesting what it means to all the TypeScript solutions out there, like how much faster they're going to be deployed and how much less memory problems will come up with them. So it's an exciting thing to see. And it's always fun to see Anders. It's like, I mean, he did C#, then he did TypeScript, and he's a fellow at Microsoft, and he's one of the most laid-back people I know. Like, when I met him the first time, he's like, "Oh, let's go to the cafeteria. I'm hungry, and shall I bring you a coffee and stuff?" And you're like, "Yes, Mr. Language programmer, inventor." It's like, what is it with like Scandinavian people? Are they like snowed in half a year? So they all come up with programming languages, it seems. But yeah, this is it. 10 times JavaScript, 10 times faster. The video is worthwhile. It's about 8 minutes or so. Really, really well done. Another thing that I've found very interesting every year is the almanac. The web almanac of HTTP Archive. HTTP Archive is basically a collection of all the websites out there and the traffic, and then they analyze what's going on there. And there has been some interesting findings in the JavaScript bit. Have you taken a look at that, Dan, or is it just new for you as well?
Yeah, no, I took a look at that one. I mean, it's interesting because it's kind of like a the sort of big summary of all of it was that we are just cluttering up the web with lots of JavaScript and we don't always need it, right? And it's kind of been on we've sort of touched on this topic the last couple of weeks, and we've mentioned things like these different web APIs and how they can just replace the JavaScript solutions that people are using in lots of frameworks. And I did mention it last week with that article that we did on the Popover API, and how you can have a full modal with light dismiss and all these kinds of little details rolled into it with about 3 lines of HTML, and the JavaScript alternative in React particularly is, it's about 15 to 25 lines, something like that, by comparison, to do the same thing with actually less functionality. So I think it's good that we have this sort of article, people keeping an eye on it and saying, actually, we are sort of, like they're saying there, distribution of unused JavaScript. We're cluttering up the web with AI, and now we're doing it with JavaScript, and frameworks probably compounding with that as well. So
unused bits is really, really interesting. There's like, I mean, this is basically a build script, putting the kitchen sink and everything onto the page until you need it. And it makes more sense to load it on demand. It really does. And that's why JavaScript takes so much memory. It basically is a very, very dynamic language. So you can load things on and when it's necessary. You don't need to set like a massive bulk of code in there. The interesting thing I found as well was like the usage of JavaScript libraries, and that jQuery just won't die. That's one thing that always fascinates me as well, that we all talk about like, oh, React and Vue and HTMX, and every week you have a new one. And it seems like that most of the stuff that's out there is still basically 2 or 3 languages.
It's always the way as well, right? It's the unsexiest things are the ones that just stay there for the longest. When we talk about PHP and WordPress, we talk about jQuery, they're never going anywhere. They're part of the furniture now, I feel. But maybe that's, maybe there is something that will come along and sort of replace it all, but I can't see it. It's so integrated into so many different apps and platforms that there's always going to be an element of like clutter and the things that we're left with from a previous age with the web. I think that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah. 74% JavaScript, jQuery. It might be because it's bundled with WordPress. That's the thing that I always wonder about this number. What's interesting, Zaid, is that there's nothing about Babel or any of the other 3D libraries, right? Like, do you think it's just such a fringe community that it's not showing up in the whole comparison of the web?
I mean, I know that they are important players in the web space, but good question.
Because Babel was also a Microsoft thing, which a lot of people didn't realize, that there's 2 French dudes that do it, and everybody is basically using Mr. Doob's other 3D library, which escapes me right now. But Babel is a very, very interesting project as well, and it's fully open source, so it's really interesting to contribute to and to play with. But yeah, the findings of that almanac is actually a really interesting thing. Have you been playing with the JavaScript libraries, or are you using more native code for your stuff, Zaid?
Unfortunately, I am a bit far from JavaScript development. So in our space, in our VR development, we rely more on .NET, and and Unity game engine.
What was how did you experience that whole debate about Unity now charging people, and like it becomes harder to be an independent game developer with Unity right now, isn't it? Or do you think the margins are still big enough for you to actually play for free and still make a bit of money?
True. I mean, there was like a big backlash for the community when Unity introduced these the additional fees for developing, like for game development in this case. Personally, I see that they are. I mean, there has been certain changes. I think the fees got lower, as I believe, and Unity is, I think, got back, or they are, getting more back and back for the or building up their game development community, and they are interacting more now with the developer audiences. So I hope that it's going,
Okay, YouTube is 20 years old. This makes me feel old as well. I can safely say I pay for YouTube, and it's been probably the best investment I've done for a long time, because I can't be bothered with all the ads and stuff. And it's amazing what you find on YouTube. Do you use it intensively? Do you use it for just finding things? Like, what is it? What kind of a resource is YouTube to use?
YouTube to me is, I think it's the number 2 resource after ChatGPT or Copilot nowadays. So I always rely on YouTube to basically watch the hands-on videos in terms of development, or in general, because if you code, let's say nowadays with ChatGPT, Copilot, and so on, you only get plain text. Sometimes you don't really know where or how the certain things are interconnected. So that's why having, to me, YouTube is always mandatory for someone who really learns hands-on and so on. So YouTube is the go for me always.
There's a fine line, though, isn't there? Like, I mean, I hate when I look for a programming issue and then I get a YouTube video as the first answer, and it's like, and you see the scrubber bar at 1 hour 27 for a little bash script thing. And there's always and before I tell you how to do that, here is my sponsor, NordVPN, or whatever else they have in there. So there is a fine line between the two, but it's still, it's interesting how it became a resource for just learning things more than TikTok. I mean, TikTok has this Tech Talk hashtag, which is also a resource to learn things. But I think in YouTube there is a way. So you said ChatGPT first, YouTube second. Do you also use these YouTube summarizer scripts that basically say okay, let an agent watch the video for me and then give me the gist?
No, I personally just go. No, until now, I never really used them, but I rather skim myself through the videos. Nowadays, you have YouTube introduced these chapters features that you can always jump from chapter to another.
Yeah, this one is one of those where you can just paste a YouTube URL and then it basically give you a transcript and tell you what's going on in the video, so you don't have to watch it yourself.
Wow, I noted this. Interesting.
So, Dan, you've been publishing by the minute now on YouTube. Before you joined WeAreDevelopers, did you also think about that, or was it something that was beyond your approach because you were busy doing proper video things?
No, I mean, I to be honest, I think it was one that I feel like I was born about 5 years too late, because it was when I was in university, we didn't have it, right? And I was doing a media production, filmmaking degree, and then we had there was something out there. It was called something like Spaghetti Videos or something really random, but it was these little kind of video portals that were starting to pop up. But there wasn't anything like YouTube where you felt you could publish on it yourself. There was still this kind of sort of ceiling, I suppose. But I do think that what it's done is it's broken that wall down between somebody feeling like they can make video content in their chosen niche. And before, it would have been very expensive, technically very difficult, very time consuming. And it's just that sort of convergence of all the technologies that have come along that have meant that anyone can go on YouTube. And I think that the one thing I will say about it is that when you look back on the 20 years of YouTube, we kind of the representation of what we've seen with the web. We've had this wild west of creators making things for creativity and fun, and that's the main motivation. And now we've got the monetization, and I can get brand deals, and I can, form my niche that I can then sell them a course on, and all this kind of this system around it. And in a way, it's hard not to be cynical, right? Because you occasionally find those people who just make the content because they're like, I've learned something and I want to share it, and I love seeing that. But then you always have the people that are like, no, I'm only making content to monetize it, and the value is very little. So it's kind of, I love it and I don't so much.
I think it's also a technological stack thing as well. Like there's a lot of JavaScript, like React, like 10-second videos, or like you got like the really Mr. Beast kind of style, kind of like 50,000 memes and then showing a bit of code. And then you have the .NET guys with like the 2 hour, 30 minutes deep dive onto the newest features of .NET. Do you find that is this an age thing, or is this just an approach thing? What do you think, Zaid? Is it just different communities?
I also personally feel, let's say I'm older than these newer generations nowadays. Like I cannot only watch these 1-minute videos to learn a dev coding topic or something. So who knows, maybe these the new generations are, let's say, adapting to understand the topic on the fly, but I think I'm still not one of these ones. So I would rather take my time and perceive the video from A to Z.
I guess there's two sides to it. The video should entice you or excite you about a certain thing and then go in depth on your own time, or it's a course that actually goes from A to Z in one video. So I think these are the differences. There's always these like wonderful code tutorials with like somebody from India with like a very bad microphone that has like incredibly good content, but you don't know what
these
the hell
are the good ones though.
Yeah, those are most of the time the really good ones, and you're like, let me send you a microphone because I really want to support you. This is going to be really, really good. We talked about vibe coding before, so Dan, you're up. So this game created by AI vibe coding makes $50,000 a month, and yours probably won't. Well, it's also going to use. It's also a personal attack on you, Zaid. So
gives me Minecraft and Half-Life vibes. What is it? What's the story behind it?
Yeah, so I'll give you the kind of plotted history of it. So it's made by Peter Levels, who's got a huge following on X, and has been for the last few years kind of built his following by producing a huge amount of apps very, very quickly. So I think he at one point had a spreadsheet with about 100 apps that he'd made in a few years. Now the argument has obviously been for people that do not like that approach, that he's churning out tools and apps, and if they don't take off, then users will have already maybe sent some money or bought something or been involved in it, but he will have moved on to the new app, the next thing. The other people who like it would say, well, it's small bets. He's creating lots of apps and some of them will be successful, and then he follows that lead, and if something takes off, then he follows it. Now, this is probably the thing that took off the most of anything because it's really out there. It's essentially a flight simulating game. You can see it's got advertisements in the game, so you can actually pay for a slot. I think it was about $10,000 per month to have your name on a blimp in the game.
Wow.
Now, I'm not going to criticize the game. I've not made it, but I will say those graphics are awful. And the issue is that it spawned this debate around vibe coding, which is essentially if I sit down with Cursor or Bolt or Copilot and I speak in English and I say, or write in English, create this, so pure natural language prompts, and I just accept what it gives me, how far can I get? And this is supposed to be an example of it. He's monetized it. It's $50,000 per month because of the sponsorships and things like this. I suppose the debate is, will that continue? And is this a gold rush or is this a one-time thing? And I've seen a lot of people making a lot of games on the back of it impulsively. And it seems like a gold rush, but I don't see anybody else recreating that. I think it's a one and done thing, a one-time thing. What do you guys think?
So you mentioned previously that you can pay some sort of sponsorship to position yourself in the game, but what does the Lambda or the Half-Life logo is doing in the back?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm really not sure on the reasons for those. But what I have seen, and this is one interesting thing I will say, somebody that was part, we've spoken to them in the community, advertised their website in this game, and then they started to share on LinkedIn the traffic, and it's the #1 source of traffic is this game.
Wow.
Will it stay that way? I don't think so. Almost definitely not. But I think it's opening a real debate about whether or not we even need to learn to code, whether we can just speak to an LLM and it'll build something for us.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So does WeAreDevelopers already on board in the game?
We've made our own game and we're sponsored. No, we haven't. But yeah, I mean, sorry, Chris, you're going to say something.
Simulator, and it's going to be on water and like. Yeah. So anybody who wants to put another logo on this one, $12,000, I can send you my PayPal later. I mean, the Lambda logo and the other logos in there is of course preceding. I mean, if you say like you have like ad spots in there, then just put some random things on there to make sure that people know where they could go. I mean, I'm actually more amazed that they just look absolutely awful and are not even on the blimp. That looks like a text that's flying in front of the blimp. But that's a different thing. Like. And I guess the Gold Rush idea is that he had these contacts before. He already had a presence that basically gave him like contacts in these areas. So probably somebody else making a random game. And we had the person from EIEIO Games here. I'm working on the guy who did like Pigsty, the skyscraper thing. I know a lot of people that make games for fun. And it feels like this is a whole new level right now where we basically we saw that people that built something, but they put their mind to it and put effort in, and then it became viral. It was really stressful for them. The Flappy Bird was the best example of that one. So he basically shut it down because he couldn't deal with it any longer. But this is like seems to be like throwaway code and throwaway things, and like. For a short while, you probably can get lucky and make a lot of money with it. But yeah, I would very much doubt that in like 3 weeks, people look at that thing any longer. Much like the Wordle copy cat games or the Flappy Bird 10,000 copies of that one that we had in the past didn't quite work out the way we wanted to. I guess it's also good because it's in the browser, so anybody can do it. Like when you do it on a platform that is like a 3D environment, and it's even harder to reach people and to get this kind of sponsorship going there. But the vibe coding thing is something that I want to go back to. It feels like a really cool thing. But it also feels to me it's not creation of code; it's creation of a product. It feels like when you go into the holodeck on Star Trek and basically say like, give me a waterfall and give me that and give me that and give me something to enjoy for an hour and then I go away. So the whole idea of the market right now, or the news outlets saying like, this is the new way, a serendipitous way to work with computers. Maybe I'm just old and grumpy, but I don't think that this is actually what we should be doing. We should not build throwaway code for prototyping, for trying things out, definitely. But what's next? Like movies generated the same way, music generated the same way. We had this discussion earlier that when we go back to the 90s, we had like lots of boy bands and they were not bands. They were actually products of casting and they were products of marketing. Like every boy band had the tough guy, every boy band had the cute guy, the romantic one. So there was one for everybody. Same with like Spice Girls. And this seems like the thing right now that AI will make all of you into a creator. And I mean, I like games, but I always found like it's really easy to get people excited to start programming with games, but it doesn't go far. It always there's a certain level where it's like, okay, now you got your game and what now? So, Zaid, I think in your case, in the 3D space, especially with the HoloLens thing, that a lot of like games was a really good thing to get people started, right?
Like when it comes to there was like 2 years ago, like the big hype around industrial metaverse, which Microsoft also introduced. So there was like a big use cases around healthcare, how you can like use HoloLens, for example, in surgery. personally, I'm also working currently on a project which uses virtual reality to help or mixed reality as well to help reduce anxiety for people who go to the dentist, for example. So my elder sister is a dentist, and she works a lot with kids, and a lot of the challenges that she faces on a daily basis is that children are scared of sitting on the dental chair. So we are currently building like a small mini game where a user, for example, can put on the VR headset on the dental chair, and he can like shoot some objects while being operated on him with minimal hand movement. So you will not be like fighting around the objects while being operated on, but like yeah, exactly. So
that's an interesting one, because when I worked with people with anxiety issues, having a VR headset on them actually gave them more anxiety, because they felt like they don't know what's going on around them.
Yeah, that's that's a really good point. But what we are doing is we are like really onboarding the users. So we are like giving them instructions even before they like concretely sit on the dental chair. There's like some sort of an onboarding. As soon as they sit on the dental chair, so as soon as you sit on the dental chair, you are not directly in VR. So you are first in mixed reality, and then the VR environment beams in slowly. So you'll not like get scared of, okay, oh wow, where am I? So you'll have like this seamless transition between VR and mixed reality, like where you can see the environment, and the user herself can also control this with a joystick. So as soon as you feel, let's say, okay, I don't feel well, I can beam back to reality but still play the game, or you can then always switch back and forth as needed.
My dentist has a TV set in the on the roof, and it's interesting because they showed a nature program last time I was there, and it was just like, furry animals and wonderful, and then it was like 10 minutes about spiders.
Oh, well, okay.
I'm like, that is counterproductive. That is really not making me relax right now.
Yeah. Switching topic. The spiders one. Okay.
Well, I mean, when talk about onboarding, that was one thing I really, really enjoyed about the HoloLens. The onboarding experience was incredibly good. Like that, it started talking to you and saying like, and now do the bloom movement with your hand, and now do the air pinch thing. So it taught you all the interactions in a very immersive and very step-by-step manner. So I really enjoyed that. That was really, really good.
Yeah, and this is like the standard. Like this is what we are like, or also planning. Like this is an essential for every mixed reality application, because not all users are on the same level. Maybe you have some elderly people who are not very, they do not have like experience interacting with these technologies yet. So having a seamless and adaptable onboarding experience is always essential.
And going through, I think also going through preconceptions. Like when I switched for a company phone on an iPhone from an Android, I expected buttons everywhere, and I expected things to be much more complex than they are. Like a lot of times on iOS, you have a long touch, which does nothing on an Android, but you just and people who just were born into that or just used it as the first thing are looking at you like you're some weirdo. But like it feels like the magic of like just randomly things happening for you is harder for somebody who's been who had years of experience being let down by technology, I guess.
Totally.
So this article goes a bit into that vibe coding as well, but it's more about creation of things on the fly. So
yes, this is one of my favorite questions to you, as I see directly in the title. Will AI take over our jobs?
Depends on your job.
We can answer it in later.
I mean, the post is interesting because he shows about all the things what he's built with just with AI and with like self-paced things, and yeah, but I don't know. I mean, like of course it's going to be a lot of stuff is going to change, but our jobs will still be there because in the end, these are throwaway products that he built there as well. It's not a final product that goes somewhere. Maybe the longevity of code has become a lot less than it used to be, but I really think that like the whole idea of like treating software like a product that can be thrown away after a few days feels to me so wasteful and against the concept of software, because software is supposed to be living and changing and adapting to needs rather than like being a one-off for one use case and then going away again. So Dan, if you looked into closer what he's been doing there, or what's your idea of that? Like, do we actually have no need for experience anymore to build things?
I'm really, really torn on it because I'm a big believer, especially having been a teacher, that I'm a really big believer in anything that helps somebody as like an on-ramp to something new, and anything that helps you, break down what's the word I'm looking for? Gatekeeping, stopping gatekeeping. And I think there's something to be said for some of the sort of DIY types of music that we've seen over the years, like punk music. There's sort of no barrier to entry. You could be in the Sex Pistols and not even play bass and still be a very successful musician. And I feel a little bit like there is a space for that in software, of the playing around with something a little bit throwaway, and it being about experimenting. It's maybe not for everybody about the code. I think about my daughter maybe getting into it at some point, and I think, oh, one day I'd love for her to make a little game for herself or something to help her with her school. And it probably won't start with me sitting her down and saying, let me explain to you data types. It'll probably start with, let's build something cool, and then taking her back to that side where you learn more. So I'm really, really torn on it. I agree with what you're saying. It's against the spirit of software, but my anti-gatekeeping kind of sentiment would say, let them do it. It's a good thing overall.
Then again, there is a gatekeeping in it, though, like, because you need a beefy computer, you need to have access to a ChatGPT system. You probably have to pay for the really good ones. Like we always say, like, this is democratizing development, but to a degree, it democratizes it by making you dependent on a certain provider. Yeah. Whereas like web development and a text box basically I don't care. Like, I mean, I can host that thing anywhere I want to. So it always feels like it's easier to adopt, but that's a bit like saying like, yeah, okay, you can write a blog post using WordPress and downloading or buying a template, which is great because it's actually the thing, but and it allows you to concentrate on your writing rather than like on building the website with it. But you also make yourself dependent on the template provider, and that there's no nastiness in those things. So that's the same with like the vibe coding generated code thing. There was one case last week where somebody built an app using ChatGPT and then I think Claude, and then he basically just wanted to change something and deleted his whole app, and there was no thing going backwards because he didn't use version controlling. And I think those are the bits that actually kind of worry me, that we see it as a disposable thing that we really don't need to worry about. And it burns too much electricity and effort to actually get it done as well. Like, because vibe coding sounds cool, but you will find yourself talking to the computer for 3 hours to build a game that you could have written in like 10 minutes if you know how to do it.
I wonder if there could be an analysis done into the climate impact of all of this vibe coding, because there's huge amounts of calls to AI chatbots that we wouldn't be doing otherwise, right? We may be actually sitting there and doing it ourselves. So it'd be interesting if somebody could kind of track it, even just the last few weeks. Has there been some spike in, kind of the talk of vibe coding? Can we extrapolate from that the amount of climate impact? Yeah, but it's people don't think of it because I think there's a thinking, well, I could make money, so therefore, and that's kind of the logic in a lot of people's minds, which I think is an issue.
I guess it kind of pales compared to the runway AI generated videos. I mean, like the whole barnacle covered animals on Facebook and these kind of things. Like we're wasting electricity and AI in much other ways that we do right now. And let's not even get started on propaganda and like deep fakes and these kind of things, because that's really, really intensive in terms of computation power. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I don't think vibe coding is as much as the press already makes it happen. I think there's only a few people that play with it at the moment. Other people are still. I think there's like this 2 month of hype cycle. So like everybody said like, oh, I can use Copilot to actually Copilot agent to start building apps with it. And I think people do that more right now than they just do the vibe coding thing. I mean, I there was this video from VS Code team that was talk about Copilot, and then she's like halfway through the video, she's like, and now I can actually press that microphone and do voice recognition and start coding with voice recognition. And it felt so tacked on. It felt so like, why are you showing this? Because it's there right now, rather than like, I mean, I understand if you start that way, if you just say, hey, computer, do stuff for me. But if it's just halfway through, you're just saying like, you can also, if you're bored of typing and be fast, you can also make it much more complex and error prone by using voice recognition. That's another option of doing it. I mean, in your case,
the question
would
is, would it also make it easier if you code with your voice?
I don't know.
Or
I mean,
faster, or where do you think the benefit?
I guess it's because it feels like just lying back and sipping your tea and actually talking to your computer. And I mean, of course, it's always sold as an accessibility feature as well for somebody who can't use their hands. But I think for that, that's a feel-good stamp to put on top of it. I think this is not because people like that already used voice recognition in like Dragon Natural Speaking or on the operating system for decades. So it's not that they need AI for that. But I guess in the 3D space or in the immersive space where you don't have a keyboard, that's where voice recognition becomes much more interesting, right?
Yeah, and this is like one of the topics I've been playing around with lately is building my own VR/AI assistant. So like you have let's say a robot in 3D where you can connect it with Azure AI in the background. Example like GPT-4o or so, and then you can like have a very natural conversation with this robot to help you achieve all of your problems. Or I don't know, personally, I feel if I can also have a natural conversation with someone, I can come faster to a solution rather than back and forth researching or let's say typing with ChatGPT.
Now, this is interesting as well. There was a student that actually used AI to beat the technical interview. He got an offer from Amazon, and then someone talked to his university about it, and now there is a thing. But it's fascinating, isn't it? Like, aren't our job interviews kind of obsolete if they can be solved by an AI better than by a developer? How do you test the quality of somebody if you just basically make him act like an agent rather than as a human?
Is it just the transitionary period though? Is this the period where we've got this new technology, we've got old ways of interviewing, the new technology is changing the job? As you said, Zaid, like, are we going to actually have jobs? Is AI going to take them? I think my take on it would be no, the jobs are just going to change. Like we've seen this throughout history, for hundreds of years, really. Every time a technology comes along, it changes things. Printing press, you could start there. But the job is going to change. But I think that we're in that period where we don't quite know how to test for it yet, because we don't know exactly what we want those developers' jobs to look like. So what skills do we need them to have? So then how do we interview for those skills for that job?
There's also a speed and adoption time thing. Like, I mean, there's a post which going to be in the newsletter on Friday where somebody said, like, I left my job at FANG, at one of those big companies, because I'm going to be obsolete in 2 years. I'm going to be replaced with AI, and they already told me in the company that I will be. But the whole middle ground of our market, the insurance companies, the banks, the people that build things that you day-to-day use, like bus systems, train systems, those things are not going to be shifting all their content and their functionality to a random Chinese AI agent because they can. So there is a grace period for sure that we actually have over the next 20 years where a lot of stuff is maintenance. There's some really good new models that actually are thinking about enterprise maintenance, upgrading older systems to newer ones. But I think the bigger problem there is that companies are not allowed to use that functionality because everything has to be on-prem. And I think there is no way that's there. So what's going away is the shiny, cool new thing, innovative things. But in 25 years of development, I can safely say I started 3 projects. The rest were projects that already existed, that I had to maintain, that I couldn't change many things, that I just had to add another feature to it. And this is just the realities of our market. And they're saying like, okay, you're gonna build Facebook tomorrow with AI. Facebook already exists, and people are getting bored of it already, so it's not gonna be a thing. There's a freaky AI voice that is actually so amazing that it actually is scaring people. Yeah. These things happen, but I mean, this is a longer discussion about like what can we trust online sooner or later. Is a video of a person going to be a video of a person? Is a call going to be a call by an agent? And why would we want this? That there's every tech demo was always like, and now I can make my computer initiate a telephone call and pretend to be a human. And you're like, so we're taking the flawed system of telephone help and we're automating it with computers rather than replacing it with computers. What's the benefit here?
It's also not great, if I'm honest. I said one word when I used this AI tool, and it's interesting, right? But I said one word and I said testing, and it said, so you want to buy and I won't say it, but it's a car tech brand that's in the news quite a lot at the moment. And it immediately said, so you want to buy one of those? And I said, nope, testing. And then it was like, testing, what are we testing? And I thought, well, okay, that's I've got a neutral native English speaker from England accent. How is that going to work when somebody from Scotland is speaking to it like this? You know, we've seen that with Alexa. It cannot understand people with certain accents. So I'd love for you guys to maybe try it and put on a thick accent of where you're from and see how accurate it is, because there's a bias there, right? It's advantageous for somebody who's a native speaker is kind of where I'm getting at, but it's still not perfect.
Nielsen came back. He's always good at like doing research stuff about AX, DX, and UX. So there is basically agent experience seems to be developer experience and user experience. A whole new world, a whole new thing we have to deal with, or maybe agents are not as hot as we think they are and they will be going away. I'm not quite sure, but it's an interesting pondering if the AI agent experience with the user is something that we have to deal with. I'm very happy that we moved away from ChatGPT being the only way how we use AI, like the chat system. But the agent thing, it actually freaks me out when I basically say like, oh, go and book me a hotel room and a flight and everything. And it does everything in the background without giving me a log of what's happening. So there seems to be like a trust issue in my case. Is that maybe something we need to fix with AX?
Would you do it though? Would either of you do that? Would you, because this idea, isn't it, of AX is like, there's, like you're saying, there's going to be an agent that's going to, we're going to say, book me a holiday, and it will say, yep, this is when you're going, this is when the weather's going to be the best, this is the hotel that's the cheapest, this is the airport you're going to go for, and it's going to make all of those decisions that it thinks are best. I've said it before, I believe that a UI is nice to use, and it's nicer for me to, I'll go for a UI option over any command line or any kind of text-based option. So I think this is developers having like a bit of a fantasy of like, oh yeah, we can do everything in the command line. And the average person, my dad at home, is not going to go into the command line and book a holiday, right? He's always going to want a UI. So I don't know. I think this is just techies dreaming about an even more technical world where we can just all live in our IDE.
Well, Zaid, you said you're building an agent yourself, but you make it look like a robot to give it more grounding, or?
Currently, yes, it's more like let's say something similar like Eve from WALL-E, Disney movie. It's I like the idea maybe in the future to make it more let's say to switch from a human from a robot-like model or object to more human-like. But it's still also debatable what actually makes, and yeah, what makes a human, or when do we, when can we have this shift that you just mentioned before, having this weirdness? Okay, it's still like a robot or something. So one thing that we are seeing in the industry is that text-to-speech services, let's say, are getting more advanced more and more, and there's also like the idea of lip syncing as well. So yeah, I would say we are getting there, but it's still okay. Interesting to investigate how or what are the best practices to make this AI look like. So would it make more sense to make it like, okay, let's say a replica of Chris or Zaid, or is it like just a futuristic object or something in between? So yeah.
I guess wasn't that the death of the metaverse, that it just looked creepy, and the biggest advancement was now it has legs. Like that was the thing that always cracked me up. Like,
true, yeah. Like also when we see the early days of the meta avatars, they looked also very creepy. Now they are getting, let's say, a bit more, more and more, more normal, I would say. So there is also a lot of people who say, okay, I don't want to be represented through this like comic avatar. I would like to have myself. And at the same time, we got now, like in parallel to that, we had the conversation about, let's say, holoportation idea. So like you get really a replica from yourself as an avatar as well. So yeah, still no one agrees on one thing. So
well, the first metaverse avatars reminded me of Wii's. You know, like in the Wii game controller, when you had these little round characters, they kind of felt like that as well, except they were even more skittier. Now, Groundbreaker Talents. This is basically a mentorship program where you can help to bring your knowledge into to support young female tech talents in Uganda. And they're looking for mentors. They're looking for technical people. It's not too hard to actually what you need to do, like be able to commit to regular meetings, knowledge of programming languages, ideally JavaScript or Python, fluent in English, professional experience in tech industry. And I think it's a great thing to do. I think mentoring is just something that is exciting, and it's fun to see somebody also from a very different background to you to actually, it's a good challenge for you as an educator to get somebody from Uganda to actually get as excited as you are about a certain technology. So I think it's a very, very cool thing to support, and they're looking for mentors, and it's going to be in a newsletter as well on Friday. So if you have time to spare and you want to do something good, that's probably one of the things that you can do where you can make a difference. Other than that, you got the Global AI Bootcamp coming up. What is that going to be about, Zaid? That's your thing.
Yeah. So Global AI Bootcamp is an event we are hosting on, or Global AI Bootcamp Berlin specifically, is an event we are hosting on April 11th in Berlin, where we bring together technical experts to share technical content around AI. So we have topics focusing on Copilots, Azure AI, M365, and AI in leadership, for example, and upskilling in AI. So we are really trying to open up a space to everyone from the tech community to come together and basically learn about new AI topics to follow, let's say, to follow on the wave as well. It's going to be big. We have a really nice keynote also featuring Scott Hanselman on board. So if you are in town, make sure to join us. And we also have you, most likely, Chris, as a speaker. It's a pleasure and honor to have you on board. So we very look forward to drive our community partnership together with WeAreDevelopers.
Now, bootcamp implies to me that people do code themselves there as well, or is it just going to be a more of a like talks situation?
Yeah, so the bootcamp twist comes here because we will have some workshops additionally to the talks. So the workshops are going to be a bit more hands-on, where the attendees can like be more guided to build an AI agent with Azure AI, for example. And there is like talks and panels, but yeah.
Cool. How much space is there for how many people?
As many as we can. Like we can accommodate up to 100 people, I think.
When does it take place?
On the April 11th in Berlin. We moved to Neukölln in Berlin. So there's now like a very interesting tech hub. It's called Delta Campus that also brings like startup incubators, tech companies together, and Code has their own floor there. It's very futuristic. We even have going to have in summer an infinity pool, so we can definitely think about doing a WeAreDevelopers pool party, maybe. So all the luxurious and fun stuff we have in one place.
Cool. Well, see you then, the people in Berlin and around. So it's always a good option. Now we're again over time, but let's have some quick fire tools to look at. So the first one blew kind of my mind because I love this interaction feature, and it's basically it's a slider that shows you like two versions of an image, and you always see that with like image optimization things like or like just preview kind of things, and it basically says like here's the code. It's basically just a CSS with a variable, and this is all the JavaScript that's needed to make it happen. And I think this is just wonderful that we have these things these days. This is just pretty impressive, and it just shows the power of custom properties in CSS. They're proper 3D properties, not the 3D that Zaid does, but like they can be accessed from HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And I love that there's a handover from CSS to JavaScript rather than just having to do all the calculation and the sliding and stuff with JavaScript. You can just do it with those few lines of code, and it's just a beautiful interaction idea. Of course, it actually is accessible as well, so it supports keyboard, so that's very important there as well. So because it uses the input rather than just using the touch or tap event. So I think that's a very clever way of dealing with the whole problem. And yeah, they also point out the accessibility issue here, that you have an area label that you should sort on. It's a very interesting little thing to do and to play with. So fun that you can do that in JavaScript these days. I guess depending on how you approach it, other people would just like, okay, let's get 50,000 React components in there to make that thing happen. But it's 6 lines of JavaScript and CSS if you want to do it as well. So that makes me happy. A prompt-friendly code base, Git ingest. That's interesting as well. You can get your GitHub repo and then you can ingest it, and it actually gives you a text digest of what your code base is about. So I guess this is interesting for co-pilots and stuff like that, to actually make sure that you can actually get the information from it. But it's interesting to see. Like it shows just how organized your code base is and what comes out of it. So it might be the interesting bit there. Have you played with that, Dan, or?
No, my first thought was how many environment variables are we going to see in there? You know, it was just, there's going to be so many API keys and things that are just like, put in through this by accident. I haven't had a go myself, but I think, yeah, it's great because I think the GitHub API is really good. When I've tried to use it before, you can build some. I mean, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? Right, a developer tool like that. But still, it's great that you get these kinds of AI hooking up with the GitHub API type tools. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's a nice idea, and I love the styling. Actually, that was one thing I really liked, is the neo-brutalism. It's great.
Wasn't that the library that we had like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah,
there was a library that does that. So yeah, it shows the directory structure. It shows the file's content. So that kind of feels like looking at the GitHub page at the moment. But okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it shows tokens and all kind of stuff going on. It analyzed my code. So yeah, it's interesting to get these kind of things. It's fascinating that we go to Markdown for AI ingestion for everything right now. There's PDF to Markdown, HTML to Markdown. Is it because it's lightweight? Because one thing that drives me crazy about Markdown is that it's not standardized. Rossi wrote as tutorials in JavaScript.
It's so much. It's so much fun as well. I think that is a great site because the first thing I went for was play the game. Okay, that's what I want to do. But then it entices you in. I think you said earlier, Chris, about shouldn't it entice you in with something and then you learn more, right? And I think they've done that really well, where you play the game, but then if you were to present that to me as just a technical article, here's how I made this, but I don't get such an easy chance to play it, I probably wouldn't read the article. Whoa, okay, you're really good at it, Chris. You played before.
I got it on my telly. It's the only game I have on my television is Crossy Road, and I loved it because the name, it was Australians, I think, and it was a very cutesy little animal thing. So it was a really cool. But it's good that it actually goes from the hackable game to basically have the game and then play it and then start coding it. So I think hackable games are a wonderful idea to actually for you to mess with them and actually sort things out. So this is a really nice little course to get you started in using that in JavaScript. It uses React 3 Fiber, and I'm not sure about that, but seems to be the thing that's needed. But it's interesting. Oh, there's also a 3JS version. So this is it. This is probably then there should be a vanilla version coming soon. We'll see about that. But yeah, that's all the resources that we had. So I hope there was something in for you today. You just zoned out halfway through and went vibe coding in the background and made a game that made you money, and instead of us not making money with this. So Zaid, thanks for being a guest of ours. So
Thank you for the opportunity.
How's the planning going for the bootcamp? Are you ready with all your speakers? Are you ready with all your? And don't say I haven't answered, because that's basically, I know that. But
so yeah, actually all good. We are planning to announce the first wave of speakers next week, tomorrow actually, sorry, on Thursday. So we have a lot of speaker submissions. Yeah, so we are good. I think I'm building up now a team of volunteers to help us run the event. We have also like my company, Ignore Gravity, also is supporting us. We might have also Jitex Europe as a community partner as well. And yeah, I think with a whole combination with you guys also, I think it's going to be an epic, nice, AI gathering.
I mean, I have a way to make that URL shorter.
Sorry? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of repetition in there.
Yeah, makes sense.
We'll just try globalai.community and it works really well. So start there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to pronounce it Globalai.
Globalai. Yeah.
Globalai.
Oh, wow. I see it now. It's too long when you posted it here. So totally. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm looking forward to have you on board, Chris. So
great to have you here, and I hope there was something in the show to you today. We're going to edit it and publish it soon. So and then we're going to put the link in there as well, so people can.
It was very much fun to me. Also, let's say to switch a bit from the AR VR space. A lot of very nice topics. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. See you soon, and see you soon as well. Bye bye.